everyone. We're going to go over how to make the white rabbit's head and his hands. So let's start with his hands first. And his hands are about 1 gram and about maybe 3/4 of an inch wide. So I'm going to start out with 2 1-gram balls. Okay, so I have here 2 balls, and I had already made a hand prior. So I'm going to kind of roll those into a nice smooth ball. You want to make sure that they're kind of the same size. This one's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to take a bit off. That's close enough. So you want to just compare the two, okay? So I'm going to take and make them into a teardrop. And I'm going to flatten that teardrop. And then what I want to do at the end is kind of push it in, because it's going to be going into the armhole. Okay, so this is kind of what you want to see. So then I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to just cut a slit here for his thumb. Now, if you want to just keep it like this, you can, kind of like a little mitten. That's fine if you find it easier to do it this way. For whatever reason, it just seems that doing the little fingers are just a little bit harder. So if you find that you're having trouble, just stick with the look of a mitten. If you want to make a little indentation, you can. But a mitten is fine. Okay, so you want to make sure that this is on the opposite side. So I'm going to make another cut and then just spread those. And I'm going to just make a little mitten type of form. And I'm just curling those to kind of just give it an idea that it is his hand. Okay, so then we have 2 sides. So I would just let them rest before you put them on, and I'm going to show you what I did on his body, because these are pretty pliable right now. I would let them rest about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes, but here's the body. And as you can see, this is pretty dry now. It's been sitting for about a week. So I inserted just a little piece of wire into his arms. So when I'm ready, I'm going to take a little bit of water just around here, and I'm just going to insert his hand. And if the hand is sitting just for a little bit, it'll probably be easier to attach. But I'm just going to put this on just to show you. Okay, so there he is. He's got his hands. Okay, he's almost ready to roll. So there he is right now. Make sure that your X-Acto knife is clean. I had a little bit of black on mine, and I got a little black on the white. Also, when you're working with other colors, especially black, make sure that you clean your hands between working with other colors and white, because as you know, darker colors are going to mix in with white. Even if it's red or purple, yellow, whatever, it's going to mix in with your white, and your white is not going to look as clean as it should. Okay, so we're going to set him aside right now, and we're going to move on to the head. Now the head is 23 grams of your fondant modeling paste mixture, or 3/4 of 1 ounce. I would just go with grams. It's easier. It's a lot easier to work with. It's kind of more precise. So here I have a pre-made head, and I have also put in 26 gauge wire into the top of his head. This is for his ears. We're going to go through that in just a little bit. So just make sure that your hands are clean. I have a wet towel here, and that helps a lot while I'm working, because I found that, you know, I get colors on darker colors on lighter colors that I don't want. So I'm going to start with a pear shape, and I just want a narrow head, and I want to start just working that head. So you're going to kind of get like a nose type of shape for his head. These are his cheeks here, and then this is where his eyes are going to go. So then I want to take my fingers, kind of press here, and this is to kind of figure out where his eyes are going to go. So this is kind of the bridge. Okay, so I'm going to take my dressing tool and just put 2 little indentations. Really want to make sure he's got some cheeks. Okay, so I'm just taking a little bit of Crisco, just smoothing him out a bit. I'm going to set him right here. Okay, then I'm going to go and I'm going to make his muzzle. So his muzzle is almost a little bit less than a gram, so I would just start with a gram of your fondant mixture. And it's kind of like a sausage shape. And he's about 1 inch long. And I would say 1/4 of an inch wide. Okay, so I'm just pinching the bottom a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet his face. Oops. A little bit of pink in there. And I'm going to put the muzzle from the top where his eyes start all the way to the bottom. I'm just pressing down just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to take this tool and I'm just going to eyeball the center. You want to crease in between that muzzle. Okay, so there he is. He's got a crease. And then you're going to take the bottom part of the dressing tool where it looks more like it's thicker part of the foot. Okay, so, and then you're going to take an indentation and make his little mouth. So if you see that, so he has a little mouth opening there. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go to the nose. And I would just say a very small amount. So a ball that size. So think about the ball, the size of the ball that you used for the center of your hydrangeas. Okay, so I'm going to just pinch it and I'm going to wet the top here and just place it on top, and then I'm just going to press down. I'm just kind of smoothing that nose out. Okay. So now, if you don't want him to get misshapen, you can always wait a little while to put his muzzle on and his nose. I would wait a bit, maybe a day or so, to put his eyes on, and then when he's still wet or pliable, you're gonna stick that wire in there for his ears. So you'd stick 2 in there. Okay. So now we're gonna work with the one that's already been made. We're gonna put his eyes on. So his eyes, you just want a very small amount of white. I would say just a tiny bit, very minute, like this. Okay. And I would do both of them at the same time so you can have an idea of if you're getting the right size or not. I think this is a little bit too big because the eyes are just not that big. So the smaller the better. I'm just going to cut that. Make sure you don't cut yourself. I'm going to make those into balls so they're actually smaller than before. Okay. I'm going to wet the area between the bridge of the nose. So right there. And then I'm just going to press that in, and I'm just going to smooth it out. So I'm kind of giving it the shape that I want. Okay, so there he is with his eyes. Then you want to make his eyelids. And really all you need is just a tiny ball. And you're going to cut in half. And then you're just going to place it on top of the piece of white that you had for his eye. Okay. And you can just mold it the way you want. Keep it as much as you possibly can to the look of the picture given for the cake. of what the rabbit looks like. And if you need to, make a little adjustments. So I'm just, you know, adjusting. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna make the pupils very tiny, tiny. Like I said, this head, making this is just, it's tedious, and it's a lot of tiny little pieces. So I'm gonna start with a ball, and a very small ball, and I'm gonna cut those into several tiny pieces, 4 pieces. So 2 of these pieces are going to be your little eyeballs, and then 2 of them are going to be his eyebrows. So I'm going to set that aside. And I'm just going to make these into like little balls, tiny, tiny, tiny. If you think they're too big, then cut them down. Okay, so then I'm just going to make a little dot. He's kind of cross-eyed. Like I said, follow the picture that was given to you. And then, so here he is. I'm going to press and just kind of mold those black dots in place of how I want his pupils to look. Now I'm going to take the 2 tiny little pieces that I had prior. I'm just going to make those into little sausages, and I'm just going to place them on his head. You can put a little water. Just make sure you don't put too much water, or it'll become like just a mess. And you can adjust. I think this is a little too long. So now you can always have the option of drawing his eyebrows if you'd like. And then I'm just going to draw underneath his his eyelid. And then if you want, you can draw a little bit there. And just make sure, like here, I kind of smeared it there. So just be very careful. I have a little bit of transfer of black and white in there, so just be careful that doesn't happen. If it's too tedious at first, just take a break. Now I'm going to put a little bit of black in his mouth. And this is just a little ball. And you're just going to take your brush, put it in there. And I'm just going to take my tool and just kind of move that black piece up and just mold it. Okay, so there he's got a little mouth. And this is more of a, this is another version. So as you can see, my eyes are a little bit smaller here. I would say the smaller the better. So now with this one, what we're going to do is we're going to make his ears and his whiskers or fur rather. Now I have some ears here. The ears are about, I would say, 1 gram each. And you're going to cut them down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with 2 grams. And I'm going to roll it into a ball. Make sure it's conditioned nicely. Roll it into a smooth ball. And then you're going to start rolling those out. And the ears are about 1 inch long. And I want to make sure that they're narrow at the edge, at the end here. So I think that's good. So then you would want this to be about 2 inches long. So 2 inches long. It's a little bit over, that's fine, no big deal. Okay, so then you're going to take these 2 ears, take your pad, and then just kind of press them down to flatten them out. And then you're going to take your modeling stick and just press that in to make an indent. So, and you can make the top of the ears more pointy if you want. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just squeeze the bottom part and then kind of mold them. So I'm just taking the top and kind of curling them a little bit over. You can let these rest for about maybe 10 minutes. So then what you're going to do is you're going to wet around the two pieces of wire, and you're going to stick those little guys in there. And I'm going to have them facing kind of each other. And then you can kind of just smooth this into the head a little bit. Okay, so I'm just smoothing him. If you need to use a little Crisco, you can do that. I would let these rest just a little bit so they kind of firm up and they hold their shape. Right now they're not really wanting to hold their shape. Okay. So that's the only thing. And then I'm going to set him down. And then for his fur, all you're going to do is you're just going to take some long little pieces Okay, so, and they want to be fairly thin. And then you're just going to wet his cheek. And then start cutting these up into just little pieces. So then I'm just going to adhere the ends of these pieces. You might want to let these just sit a little bit because they kind of just want to go all over the place. And they're not cooperating. So if they're not cooperating, just let them sit for about 5 minutes. Because they want to pull and tear, and it can get very frustrating. Okay, so there's his little whiskers, or his fur rather, on his cheek. Just add a little bit. You can add as much as you want. It's not going to work. And then you would do the same thing on his head. Okay, so I'm going to take 3 little pieces and just place them on top. And they're kind of sticking up, so you can stick them up if you want. I'll put one last little okay. All right, so he's got his fur here, his little fur here, and then you would just repeat the process on this side. And then once he's finished, you're gonna put that head in here. Okay, he should have a nose, obviously, but this is just to show you what he's gonna look like. Okay, and this is your finished rabbit.